Welcome to the information session for the Certificate for Allied Health Assistance course at Mayfield Education. As part of the information session today, we'll briefly talk about Mayfield Education, what it's like to work in healthcare, all of the details about the course so that you're fully informed, and then lastly, the next steps in applying for the course. So firstly, a little bit about Mayfield Education. Mayfield specializes in education and training in healthcare and community services. We've been operating for about 60 years. We have excellent completion rates and outcomes as a student, and we specialize in delivering courses specifically for healthcare professionals and staff members who want to upskill their requirements. Before you begin thinking about joining a course at Mayfield Education, there are a couple of questions that you may want to ask yourself depending on your current situation. Number one, do you have any learning challenges? If so, we'd need to document these challenges so we can specifically cater a training plan that will meet your individual learning needs. Number two, do you have any pre-existing injuries? Most healthcare work is very physically demanding, so if you have any pre-existing injuries, then it might be something you want to think about whether you could physically or mentally complete the task required for the course and for the work. Our third question, do you understand what the job entails? As part of healthcare work, it's normally not just a 9 to 5 standard job. There's usually shift work and there can be weekend work as well. So there are three important questions to think about before you begin applying for a course in healthcare at Mayfield. Work in healthcare can be very rewarding. It's a great team environment. You get to deal with clients from different backgrounds and cultures. But as we mentioned, it is demanding. And healthcare never stops. It's a 24/7 industry. So be aware of that if you're thinking about applying for a course in healthcare with Mayfield. What is the allied health industry? Well, allied health professionals usually work in a number of settings such as hospitals, in private practice, or in aged care facilities and community centres. Common examples of allied health professionals are physiotherapists, podiatrists, occupational therapists, just to name a few. And the role of an allied health assistant, if you are undertaking this course, would be to assist patients and assist allied health professionals. A little bit further about the role of an allied health assistant. You would be providing therapeutic and program-related activities under the guidance of an allied health professional. You may be dealing with clients on a one-on-one setting or in group settings. You would be dealing with the equipment that clients use. You'll also be completing a number of administration and organizational tasks. And a key component of the job would be having a clear understanding about work health and safety and infection control requirements. So now that we've discussed a little bit about what an allied health assistant is and what the allied health industry entails, let's move on further to discuss specifically about the course information for the Certificate for Allied Health Assistance course. The way that we structure our courses at Mayfield is using a blended delivery method. So that means there's a combination of face-to-face classes on-site at Mayfield Education in Hawthorn East, which will be practical activities, simulations, group work. But there's also a large component of self-directed learning at home. We use an online learning management system where you'll need to preview the content, complete assessments online, and also review the content after the classes. The last major component of the delivery style of this course is a clinical placement requirement where you'll be doing placement in a healthcare facility. A little bit further about the course. The classes for this course are one day each fortnight on a set day each fortnight for the duration of the course. And the classes on those class days will be between 9:30 and 3:30 p.m. The entire duration of the course is between 12 to 14 months. And the reason for that is that it's competency-based learning. So it might slightly vary for each person depending on completion of assessments and the competencies involved with clinical placement. Because the course is a very practical course, there is 100% requirement for the practical workshops that will be done on-site at Mayfield in simulation and where practical assessments will be completed as part of these workshops. The clinical placement requirements for this course is 120 hours of clinical placement in a healthcare environment. And this will normally be done in 15 consecutive days that will be allocated to you at the end of the course on your timetable once you've completed all the other requirements of the course. Another important point to keep in mind is for a certificate level 4 course, there's an expectation that you complete about 30 hours per week of work outside of class time, which may be completing assessments, previewing content before classes, and also reviewing and summarizing content after classes. The course structure of the Certificate for Allied Health Assistance course at Mayfield Education involves 18 units in total. And of these units, there are 10 core units that are core common units across all healthcare courses. Some of these units, as an example, is having a basic understanding of medical terminology, or being able to communicate in healthcare, working with diverse people, and having a basic understanding of infection control and work health and safety protocols and procedures. In addition to the 10 core units, there are 8 elective units that have specifically been selected by Mayfield Education to give you experience in a wide variety of different units and healthcare environments. For example, we have selected units that relate to physiotherapy, speech pathology, podiatry, working in aged care environments, and assisting with movement. Once you have successfully completed the Certificate for Allied Health Assistance course, there are a number of job opportunities that may become available. You may be able to work as an occupational therapy assistant, as a physiotherapy assistant, or you may be able to find work in nutrition or speech pathology. As you can see, there are a number of different environments and opportunities available for employment once you have successfully completed the Certificate for Allied Health Assistance course. If you would like to undertake further study after completing the Cert for Allied Health, a pathway for this could be the Diploma of Nursing qualification, where you would get recognition of previous study as an allied health assistant. As we've mentioned, for the Allied Health Assistant course, The course delivery style is blended learning style that includes all of these different points mentioned on the screen there. As part of the Cert for Allied Health Assistance course, there are a number of different assessment styles and formats to assist you based on your individual learning needs and requirements. So for each unit of competency that we mentioned, there will be a combination of these different types of assessments as part of your course. Prior to attending placement at the end of your course, there's an industry requirement from different industry departments that all students must provide Mayfield Education with a current police check, a current working with children check, and a record of your immunizations. Further information will be provided about these requirements as part of your course orientation day on day one of the course. As we have discussed, clinical placement is 120 hours in a healthcare facility. It will be voluntary hours that's organised for Mayfield on your behalf at the end of the course. The usual shift durations are between 8 to 10 hours for each day of placement. A point to keep in mind if you're currently working in healthcare, you may be able to undertake your clinical placement at the industry where you're currently working. For those of you who may have completed previous study or may be currently working in a healthcare industry, there are a few options available for you as we can see on the screen. The first option is a credit transfer, which is where you have completed the exact or equivalent unit that is exactly the same as the one completed in the Certificate for Allied Health Assistance course. The second option is recognition of prior learning. If you've completed studies in a similar area in healthcare, then you may be eligible to apply for RPL. The third option is recognition of current competency, where you've completed previous competencies and you are now required to be reassessed to make sure that these competencies are current and maintained. For more information about this, please refer to the Mayfield website. Thinking about your journey as a student at Mayfield Education, there are a few steps that would be helpful to complete before you even begin undertaking the course. We recommend that you have some sort of organizer, calendar, or diary so that you can book in when the class dates will be and when the assessments will be due. It's also important to organize your schedule for the time that you'll be conducting the class. You might have other commitments such as work commitments or family commitments that you'll need to organize your study time around. It's also important that you inform your manager at work, your work colleagues, and your family and friends that you're going to study a course and inform them of the requirements. Our last recommendation would be developing strategies to assist you with the requirements of the course. The specific entry requirements for the Certificate for Allied Health Assistance course at Mayfield is firstly the ability to read, write, and communicate in English at a Certificate 4 level. The second requirement is to have a basic understanding of computer skills so that you can use the online learning platforms at Mayfield and be familiar with the technology required in a workplace setting. The third entry requirement is that you must have access to a computer and the internet so that you can undertake assessments and online learning at home outside of class time. We can see here detailed on the steps the different components with applying for the course at Mayfield and the entry assessment process. Part A is attending the information session, as you are now online or attending in person face-to-face. Part B is then completing an online enrolment form on the Mayfield website. Part C is where you complete an online language literacy and numeracy skills test to be able to assess your level for a certificate for qualification. The next part after Part C will be a one-on-one, either phone or face-to-face interview with the course coordinator. Finally, the last part of the process will be a pre-training review checklist that will be discussed with you in consultation with the course coordinator. So if you've completed all of those steps, what will happen after that? Well, next you'll be informed by the course coordinator of the results of your application. If you're successful, you'll be provided an official letter of offer from Mayfield Student Services. You'll then need to read that letter, sign it, and respond by accepting the letter of offer. And finally, there'll be a small fee payment required before you can begin the course. What about if you're not successful in your initial course application? Well, if that occurs, we want to assist you and help you to be able to re-enroll in the course and meet the requirements. So we can provide you advice to improve and develop your skills. We could recommend a different course that may be suitable for your specific requirements. We will provide you feedback on your language literacy and numeracy assessment, and will then give you advice as to when you can reapply again for the course. For all courses at Mayfield Education, there is an initial $250 deposit that is required at the time of accepting the letter of offer for the course. The course fees may be different for each student depending on their criteria and their eligibility for Skills First funding or concession fees. There are also installment plans available for students depending on their individual circumstances. On this slide, we can see a brief overview of the fees involved for the Certificate for Allied Health Assistance course, depending on whether you're a Skills First government funded student, a concession student, or a fee for service student. For more information about the fees, please refer to the Mayfield website or feel free to contact Mayfield Student Services. There have also been some changes to the Skills First government funding eligibility. There is no longer the requirement for upskilling, so you may be eligible to undertake 2 courses that are Skills First funded in the same year. There are specific requirements though for Skills First funding as explained here on this slide. You do need to provide student services with evidence of Australian citizenship or permanent residency, a concession card, and a completed Skills First declaration form. Thank you very much for attending the online information session for the Certificate for Allied Health Assistance course. If you have any further questions about the course, please feel free to contact Student Services either via the email provided or the phone number provided on screen. Thank you very much for your time today, and we look forward to hearing from you further about your course application and enrollment.